Hello and welcome to 52 Weeks. This week we're continuing in Chapter 5 Housing, and this week we'll be focusing on Part 4 Demographics. Initially this started as 6 categories, but I actually expanded it to 7 because of demographics. So we look at all 7 of them together. Part 1, the introduction. 2, the building typology. 3, building statistics. 4, demographics. 5, issues in housing. 6, observations. 7, building blocks of Harrisburg. So this week we're still in Chapter 5, and we're looking at a section that's issues in housing and understanding the housing market. We've been in this section for a while, but it's very important for this larger section of housing to understand what we're missing. So some of the base numbers that come up in the comp plan, again, this is from 2014 to 15 data, around when the time the comp plan was drafted, so things may have changed. But the 2011 to 2014, in 3 years, the market called for 1,800 housing units. If we take that and extract that to the population of Harrisburg in proportion, that would leave us with 341 housing units over 3 years, which is 114 units per year. And continuing with some information from the Greater Harrisburg Association of Realtors, the Harrisburg area posted 1,604 home sales that involved a realtor in the opening quarter. At the time, it was the best opening quarter since 2007. Half of those sales were in Harrisburg, which is 794 houses that have sold in the city of Harrisburg since September 2014. When we look at the issues of housing and I would say dignified living, look at rentals, this is something that's very important to see in the comp plan. And we know from data that 40% of households are single family. It's interesting to know from the data that multifamily building permits issued in Dauphin County have decreased significantly. And according to the same study, 300 units were projected to be constructed in order to achieve market equilibrium from 2011 to 2014. We look at this next part where we look at affordable units going from in 2000 from 6,300 to 2012 2,600. It's changed, decreased by minus 58%, and the units that are 500 or more had increased 82%. So the costs have been going up. So Central PA Affirmative Initiative is looking at this data. Multifamily units, which are 2 or more units, have seen a 2.7% decrease from 2010 to 2012, and we also see that 66% of the population, which is over 31,000 people, are also in a low to moderate income LMI persons. So this is something we really need to see and recognize within our city. Continuing on, the Central PA Affirmative Initiative, in 2014, all census tracts in Harrisburg were reported to contain a majority of LMI persons. And this information from the report shows the virtual evaporation of affordable housing for low and especially very low income households. So we're seeing these trends of housing and who is getting pushed out. We're not even providing basic entry-level rentals for people to enter into living in the city, the young and any immigrant populations, anybody who's just starting out or trying to make a place in Harrisburg. So there are 2 issues that we see. Many households in the city cannot qualify for mortgage. And ironically, when the mortgage rates are low and the city home prices are very reasonable, they still aren't able to be occupiers of homes. This is an issue. I know friends who could not get mortgages and could not afford the places that are near me, and that is an issue in a city that should be affordable. Then also the second point, these households are compelled to stay in a limited supply of rental housing. So not only do we not have abilities to get mortgages and do property ownership, but they're limited in where they can rent. Some of the rental units that are out there are also of poor quality. So what that brings us to an alarming situation. We have from 2000 to 2012, we have a decrease of 58% of affordable rental units, and we have an increase of 1,600% of units renting from $1,000 to $1,500. That should cause an alarm for all of us because we're really going to be pushing people out and no longer have Harrisburg to be affordable. The policy and practices are in a 20th century thinking and has not helped those to build generational wealth. And we continue to operate in these practices, and that's where we should be pushing against in this comp plan and really looking at policy that benefits all, not just a few. In this rental section, the research is also bringing in 5 key conclusions from the West Penn Fair Housing Report. Number 1, historical patterns of racial segregation persist in the city of Harrisburg, with most minorities residing in Uptown and Center City. The census tracts are listed there. Also, black households earn significantly less than white households, thus severely limiting housing choices, including location. Continuing on, number 3, the existing supply of affordable housing for low and moderate income households does not meet current demand and need and is generally limited to certain areas of the city. Number 4, fair housing complaints alleging discrimination based on either race or disability comprise the majority of complaints filed with the PA Human Relations Commission and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And lastly, number 5, the city of Harrisburg should ensure that its new proposed zoning code currently under public review, which has been accepted at this time, is compliant with federal fair housing laws prior to adoption by the Planning Commission and City Council. So this is a picture of what's transpired over the past 2 decades. It is not good, and the market system, the lax policies, and historic mindsets have not helped. This has all caused this current situation that is really tough to push up against, and that's why it takes a comprehensive plan to begin to question what the policies are existing, kind of a review, but also put forth policies that are for all people, that are looking at some of the marginalized communities, those who have been pushed out from economic wealth, and be able to look at equitable development that's happening in neighborhoods. So this summarizes our system needs to change, our policies need to change, Central PA, we need to change. We have to be doing better for the sake of the next generation to inherit this river city. So looking at rental recommendations nationally, looking at shifting interest in rental units, that's because of people not affording a house, but also trying to focus that owning a home is not their primary goal in life. Also, we have developer interest in rooming houses, micro apartments, and apartment conversions of single family homes. Locally, the city policies and planning are required to manage the introduction of new apartments to the market. The addition of high quality, purpose-built rental houses at all levels has several benefits. First being relief of pressure on the city's stock of single-family homes, nodes for location of community commercial amenities such as fresh, healthy corner stores, convenience stores, restaurants, pharmacy, and health clinics, the opportunity for new residence options to locate in a variety of cities' neighborhood, not traditional rental areas. New arrivals are the focus, and we have 2000 to 2009, 45% of current homeowners arrived, with 60% of current renters arriving. The successful economic time for most, so that was a lot of transition that happened. There were relatively lax credit standards at the time. After the recession in 2008 and into 9, from 2010 plus, 7% of current residents arrived and 30% of current renters arrived. So we start to see a decrease in both, but we also have a high number of renters that are arriving into the city. Of the 11,086 people who created households in Harrisburg since 2010, 7% are renters. People moving to the city rent before they buy. This is an important data point to look at in this section of new arrivals, that 10,000 individuals arrive in the city every 5 years and 10,000 individuals depart from the city every 5 years. This is a key finding in the comp plan to see that we have a very transitional population, that a fifth of our population transitions out every 5 years. What are the recommendations for new arrivals? There's a quote that I pulled as an image right out of the comp plan. A goal of retaining 500 of the 2,000 persons who leave the city on average every year would increase population to 60,000 by 2036. So one of the things is, how do we capture those who continue to move on from here? Now, we recognize that this is a state capital, so there's a lot of change that happens between administrations. So this is something we should be considering for staying long term. So the new arrival recommendations that are listed retain a greater percentage of the 20% out migration. These strategies include increased housing variety, improved community commercial areas and walking proximity to housing, high quality schools, increased quality of life amenities, and convenient access to local and regional transit options. The recommendations for all neighborhoods: more high quality affordable apartments, support retention of new residents as long-term resident, promote healthy, convenient, walkable neighborhoods, support current rental residents towards ownership, and the city needs to strengthen the relationship between property owners and maintenance. Continuing this idea of recommendations, home ownership from within. Given the very low cost of city property and the likely continued appreciation, it would be wise for the city to support qualified residents, perhaps through a program to hold a second position on the mortgage for houses. The city should adopt and support programs where residents have an opportunity to procure some form of ownership in the asset class of buildings in the neighborhood in which they live. This is as being a benefit to being long-term residents. This program could require certain predictable maintenance through an escrow to maintenance program, funding skills development programs for city residents.